Good morning. Today I'd like to talk to you about sublimation tumblers with an air fryer and shrink wraps. I use an air fryer. I have tried multiple presses. I have tried Cricut. I have tried ovens. For me, the game changer was when I figured out how to use shrink wrap with an air fryer. Now, please note that all tumblers that I am using are sublimation ready tumblers. Here you can see the sublimation ready tumblers that I am using and the images. I made a couple videos of creating these wraps, and so I will link them below. But for right now, I just want to make sure that you see that I have a stainless steel sublimation ready 20-ounce tumbler, and I have a plain white sublimation tumbler. This is my first time doing a stainless steel tumbler, so I'm really excited about that color. Here are some of the things that I use for the sublimation process. I have my images already, so you know that I've got the printer and everything and the sublimation ink, so that's in a different video. So here is my heat tape dispenser, which I really like because when you click it, it cuts the tape so that you have pieces of tape instead of constantly having to cut your pieces of tape. On the bottom here, you can see the shrink wrap that I use, and I like to use coffee filters on my hard substrates, on my hard blanks, because they are lint free, and I prefer not to use a lint roller on hard surfaces. I do use a lint roller on my cloth when I sublimate on it, but I prefer to use coffee filters on everything else. Something that I don't have in this picture is a good sharp scissors. You're going to need that. Some of the other items that I suggest that you get is some good heat gloves. You want to have something so you're not burning your hands. On the left there, the pink, that is my heat gun, and that is what I use to shrink the shrink wrap before I put it in the air fryer. And then underneath that, I have got a pressing mat, and I use that to cool the tumblers on after I take them out and I unwrap them. I have tried so many different tumbler presses. I have used the Cricut press for my tumblers. I have used ovens. I just haven't had any luck until I figured out how to use shrink wrap in this air fryer. This is a digital air fryer. The metal basket has been removed, and I put some silicone wraps in the bottom just because glass and metal, they will scratch. So I like to be careful. So when they get real hot, you want them on something that's protecting them. This is what I have found to be the best for sublimation on tumblers and glass. This is either a 6 or 7 quart. I can't remember specifically. I think it's a 7 quart air fryer. It was just one that we were going to get rid of because it took up so much space on our countertop. My husband said, let's just throw it in the camper. Well, it's too big. Didn't want it in the camper. And I had heard someone say that they used an air fryer, and I'm like, perfect. I'm using this one. This I only use for crafting. I do not cook food in it anymore. So the first thing I do is I'll set my time for 4 minutes and my temperature for 385. And I will start that and let it go through a 4-minute process to get it all heated up before I start putting my tumblers in it. I usually do 4 to 12 tumblers at a time. So what I'll do is I'll get all my images printed, I'll get my tumblers ready, wipe them down, I will start wrapping. And so let's use 12 as that number. So I'll start trimming, and I'll get about 6 of them ready to go into the air fryer. And then while I'm cooking those in the air fryer, while they are heating and finishing, I can still be wrapping. And so I can do like 12 at a time. So I start with 6, get them all ready to go, and then I start putting them in. And it just seems like by the time I get to the last one, I'm barely done putting the shrink wrap on the 12th one. But here you can see I hand trim these with my scissors because I have tried paper cutters. I have tried all kinds of methods for cutting this. Sublimation paper and ink do not like paper slicers, so I've gotten really good at cutting a straight line, and that just seems to be the best way to cut this paper. It gets it nice and straight. You get the finish that you want. You have a little more control. You'll get really frustrated using a paper cutter because it'll tend to rip it. And then, you're taping that and you can always see that rip line, and it just gets frustrating. After you get all of your images trimmed down, just hold them up to your blank. Hold them up to what you're going to be putting them on, just to make sure that they're not upside down. So that's all I'm doing here is before I tape these on, I want to make sure that my images aren't upside down. Then I start to wrap. As you can see here, I do a slight overlap. And I found that it's very frustrating to get these lined up right to the edge on your paper and then only to open them up and see that you've got a line there, either a white line or you've got an ink line. It's very frustrating. So I have found that if I slightly overlap it, so I told you, that on this 20-ounce tumbler, it's 9.3 and 8.2. I'll go up one size, 8.3, 9.35 or 9.4, so just to get that slight overlap on there, just because you don't want to have a tumbler that you have put in a lot of dark color on and all of a sudden you've got a white stark line there. And as you can see, I don't over tape. I just use a little bit of tape it together because the shrink wrap is going to hold this together. But if you notice on the ends, I do tape the ends onto the inside and onto the bottom so that when you put it in the shrink wrap, it doesn't move. Now, I don't know if this is absolutely necessary or not, but it works for me. And I just do it this way because it just seems to turn out. So the seam, you can see the seam inside there because you can see my blue tape. Well, there is also a seam on the shrink wrap. So I do seam on seam. So this is the tumbler inside the shrink wrap before I use my heat gun on it. Now here you can see that when I use my heat gun, I start with that seam. It just seems to tighten up the best to start on that seam, and then I'll continue around to the sides. Now you can see both tumblers. I've used the heat gun on them. You don't have to get them completely shrunk down because as soon as you put them in your air fryer, they're going to continue to shrink. I used to completely get them smooth. You do not need to do that. You don't even have to do them as much as I do them. I just choose to do it this much. I kind of like watching it shrink down. This is after I have put my tumbler in my air fryer. Now I always put them in seam down first for 3 minutes. Then close your air fryer. After that 3rd minute, open it up. Make sure you have your heat gloves on and rotate it so that seam is up for that last minute. Make sure your air fryer is preheated. A trick that I've learned too is so you don't have to reset your time every time, go up a little bit, but just keep an eye on the time so that you're not overcooking these. But then I've learned that if you have to reset your time and your temperature every time, it gets a little cumbersome. So if you can just reshut the door, it'll start automatically, the drawer. And then the countdown will continue. That's just a trick I've learned from restarting it so many times. But after the 3rd minute, you're going to open it with your heat gloves on and you're going to flip it to seam up. As you can see here now, I rotated seam up for that final minute. Now this is where it really gets fun because as soon as you get that done, you take that out, make sure you have your heat gloves on, and I start peeling right away. I do not wait for these to cool because they will start to stick to your tumbler. Some people let them cool, I know, but for me, it's easier to get this shrink wrap and the paper off while they're warm. Do not use tools. It will scratch. I have learned that from experience. Doesn't matter if it's plastic or what it is, it will scratch it. So just be really careful and start on peeling these. And I'll show you what they look like as you start to reveal. Now here is both of them fresh out of the air fryer. And as you can see, I started peeling and the reveal is just so fun to see what a good job you did, because when you do this right and it turns out and you don't have that frustration, the reveal is everything. After I have them unwrapped, I do lay them on that heat mat just so that they cool down enough that you can put your bottom on and then put your top back on. So you can either store them in the box or they're ready for you to give as a gift. And here they are finished. Oh, I really like the stainless steel one. I like both of them. They turned out very good. So I'm very happy. I'm glad I did darker images on the stainless steel, and the white one turned out great too. I just love these. They turn out so well. I've had so much frustration trying to figure out a process. I have presses. I have the Cricut. I do use my Cricut mug press for mugs, coffee mugs. I do like that for those. I do not put my mugs in the air fryer. At least I haven't tried that yet, but I'm sure you can. I just don't, because I do have a Cricut mug press. But as you can see, this is the final result and I'm really happy with it. Thank you for watching my video. And like I said, I will put those links below for the other videos, and have a great day.